Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Now, being a machine means that pretty much when books cross my review desk and they get my attention, I review them. It is like clockwork. However, unfortunately, sometimes life gets in the way. And on this occasion, I have to kick myself because the guy I'm going to talk to is the writer of a book that absolutely fits my wheelhouse. And thanks to life getting in the way, I was unable to review the book. And I feel gutted about it. I absolutely love this book. I thought it was great when I first saw the first issue. Now I've got a chance to talk about the whole thing that's due out on August the 7th. So without further ado, let's bring on the writer creator. It's Pat O'Malley. Pat, how's it going, sir?
Super great. Thanks for having me. Johnny the Machine. I love the machine part. I need a middle name that's kind of badass like that.
Oh, it's not that cool, to be fair. The truth be told, it's because when we started doing podcasts, something like 8 or 9 years ago, my colleagues in the States totally forgot about time zones. So it was a case of like, they said, hey, let's do a pod and let's make it 10 p.m. EST. I'm like, dude, that's like 3 o'clock in the morning my time. And I'd get up for these pods. And they're like, oh, man, you're just like a machine. And that's
okay. All right. So,
it's not as cool as it is. Trust me. It's a sign of being a nerd more than being cool.
That's okay. That's a good badge.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. I've got to say, your book, Pop Scars, the first issue, as I said in the intro, man, the first issue rolled over my desk. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, this is absolutely my cup of tea. And then life just sucked me in. I just couldn't get to it in time to review it. So this is like retribution for me. It's like I've got a second bite of the cherry. You never get that, man. You never get a second bite. So start us off. We've got the video play, the trailer video. Before we get to that, give us a quick synopsis. What's the book about?
Pop Scars is, man, it's Hollywood revenge. It's to me, I tried to make the ultimate revenge story set in a place that I've lived for 12 years. So I kind of got to know the streets of Hollywood and just walking around and getting to, pick up different people and characters. And so this book kind of harnessed a lot of that and a lot of my kind of disdain for the behind the scenes of the industry. I kind of want to poke at that and there's some stuff that goes on that's not great. And, it's supposed to be the place where dreams come true, but it's very different when you get out here. And I kind of tried to boil that down for this story. And it's told through our main character, Pinky, who is just the ultimate badass vigilante out for revenge against a Hollywood movie producer. And I think once I kind of found her, then everything else started to fall into place and the story kind of just unraveled,
Cool. Excellent. Let's take a look at the trailer before we get into dive into some details. Let me see if we can get this right. Short but sweet. It's fine.
Short but sweet. Yeah, I like that. I like it.
It gives us more questions than answers.
Yeah.
First of all, how did you manage to get a model to walk down Hollywood Boulevard wearing that outfit?
Well, I have a good friend who her name's Amanda. She does cosplay, and she was really nice enough to kind of just go out in Hollywood with me and put on the costume and shoot with me, and we ended up getting some really cool footage that I kind of use as I've teased this project. But I'm very grateful to her. She's awesome, and she does her own kind of really badass like wasteland cosplay stuff.
Okay, cool.
That's very cool. So she was like kind of the perfect person to say, hey, can you like do me a favor and kind of do something a little crazy?
I'm sure that wasn't the craziest outfit on Hollywood Boulevard.
No, it wasn't. So we're good. Even with the bat and the axe, we had no problems walking around.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, cool, excellent. All right, so a revenge book. era wise? Is it modern day? Is it set in the 20s, or is it a little bit earlier than that?
I would say we're in the age of cell phones and social media, but I wouldn't say we're 2020-ish. We're before that, a little
Right.
pre. The time was tricky to kind of pin down. I didn't want to rely on cell phones too much, especially in comic books. Like, it's boring to just like watch someone on a cell phone. But I needed some of that social media because that kind of influences, different aspects of the revenge and how people use social media to kind of get more popular or, kind of tear somebody down,
And I suppose back then, when social media was just kind of kicking off in the heyday, there was a lot more innocence to it and a little bit more naivety to it, rather than the kind of scorn and sarcasm and cynicism that I normally hold for social media.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Cool.
But I think, that was something I was afraid to kind of put in. I wanted it to be more so about, a kind of street level story, having to figure things out as you go, whether like instead of relying on technology.
I love one of my favorite movies of, I suppose, probably the last 10 years or so was Casino Royale, the Daniel Craig James Bond movie. I thought that was really great up until the last 20 minutes when it's all about a mobile phone and what's kept on the message. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And even that, it's a Nokia phone. It's like, come on, go Samsung at least.
They're story killers. Cell phones, they can solve too many problems too easily,
Yeah. They're the R2D2 of the comic book world.
Yeah.
Damn you, R2D2. So what was it about? Okay, so I mean, looking through the book, Pinky is super reliant, super self-reliant, kind of like. I'm not going to put. I'll go there. I'll put influences out there. A little bit Electra, a little bit Jennifer Blood. Are these kind of the inspirations that I'm reading, right? Or
a little bit, I think there's some inspirations that I did not even know that I had. Like, I recently discovered Kabuki from David Mack, and I would have said that was an inspiration for Pinky if I had found that earlier. I think I love a lot of movies, 70s movie, like revenge movies. I think, some Tarantino kind of inspired this. Miss 45, Old Boy. I took a couple of things from a couple of different places. A little bit of Taxi Driver in issue 1.
Yes. Totally get
that. But really, Pinky kind of came from, I drew Spider-Man in high heels, and I saw something there, and I didn't know what it was yet. But then once I kind of stripped off the webbing and stuff and started to kind of morph it, Pinky kind of showed up from that, honestly.
Well, if Spider-Woman dressed like this, she'd probably sell more books. We won't be getting Gwenpool in this. Although, funny enough, that you could argue the mask, I suppose. When we talk about revenge, we talk about female characters in that kind of aspect. How difficult is it? We talked about mobile phones being kind of like the game killer, But when we talk about female characters, how hard is it to kind of show that strength of character? Because she has a purpose. It's massively important to her. It's the thing that keeps her going. It keeps her ticking when she takes a kicking, as it were, potentially. What is it that? How do we manage? How do you, as the writer, manage to kind of balance that out? Because we want to shout for the character, but if she's too badass, then we think, but then if she's not badass enough, we think, well, so that's a balancing act. How did you manage that?
I think part of it was like seeing her as who she was with the mask on, which is this persona, this larger than life persona that she can kind of fit in with the Hollywood people that kind of stand out and kind of use that as like some power. And I think without the mask, though, which we see a little bit of, she's struggling with kind of pulling this off and struggling with like kind of going all the way. I think that's her kind of thing she's fighting with is like, does she actually have it in her to like kill this person who is her dad? And, that's, how can you answer that? You know what I mean? I think part of it is she just feels like he can't be alive anymore, and no one else is going to do anything about it. I think, in Hollywood, he kind of runs the place. He's, celebrated and awarded. And I think that drives her to that point where if nobody else is going to do anything about this, then it has to be me. It has to be me. And I think that's where she kind of goes over that edge of committing to it, and going all the way. And that's where she kind of becomes Pinky. I think without that mask on, I think she's like anybody else. But I think sometimes we need that wall, that superpower to kind of, distance ourselves from it and let that kind of take over,
So let me ask you the Batman question then.
Yeah.
Is the real person Pinky, or is the real person the person under the mask?
Right. I think in this story, we're going to see what happens when it becomes Pinky, when the real person kind of slips away. And like, as you said before, is it somebody who we can root for? I think I'm going to experiment with that more because, I like rooting for her, but like, what happens when you get what you want,
That's a great shout. Love that.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant call.
So you get what you want, and maybe that's when you kind of go in that new direction where, you start to care less about how you're affecting people and kind of more about just letting this darker persona take over,
If you get what you want, then you feel indestructible.
Yeah. And
Potentially
so
take more risks, put yourself out there more, and that's when you have your comeuppance, as it were.
So that's, part one is kind of like Pinky becoming Pinky. And I am planning more for Pop Scars. I just love it. I think that the world is so rich. There's a lot of characters that I even when I was developing this first story, I was also developing beyond it. And I think the big thing that I kind of want to focus on is like, what does happen when you get what you want and you kind of lose control a little bit, and what are those consequences that come? Because they're coming, but I think that's what's kind of exciting is there's so much more to it. And I think this first book is like very grounded in her emotional journey, trying to do this singular mission, and then how it can kind of evolve from there. But I think that the special thing about Pop Scars is every character is driven by revenge. Revenge is cyclical, so it's always kind of coming back around, which is it's kind of fun, and it's going to happen like that until everybody is off the board,
That's one crazy game of Cluedo.
Yeah.
Everyone killed everyone with everything in the whole house.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's have a look at some of the book. You kind of send that across. Give me 2 seconds. We'll bring that up. Now, we're not going to show the whole book because for everyone who's watched this show before, you know what I say. Oh, we want you to buy the damn thing, right? So you're not getting everything. So don't get all like, oh, we're going to see everything. We're not. But I've got to say straight off the bat, how cool is this cover? This cover screams that kind of 60s, like maybe late 60s, early 70s, kind of like Dirty Harry style kind of shtick. You've got a shark on there, so you're automatically thinking Jaws. I know he plays. There's game down the line in this, but it kind of screams that 70s vibe.
Absolutely, that's my favorite stuff too. Those are the kind of movies I love the most. And the cover artist Robert Samelin, he does amazing work with he does like vinyl record covers, and
Cool.
I've always kind of loved his collage work. He's able to fit everybody in an amazing spread, and he was, we were lucky enough to have him do this, and he just did it to perfection. As soon as I saw it, I just knew. All right, we're good.
I have to ask. I'm going to ask a quick question out of sequence here, so apologies for this.
No,
I was flicking through the book, and I'm not going to go through there because the thing I'm going to bring up is chapter 5. The cover to chapter 5. I don't know if it was like just an interior page that's kind of used as a kind of a bookmark, or it's a straight black and white picture with the kind of with Pinky not in silhouette, but everything highlighted white.
Yes.
And I thought that was a great, maybe kind of like an inverted Sin City, I suppose. Whoever did the page for chapter 5 as the stopgap, I want to tip my hat because that is a gorgeous piece of work. I was like,
Well, that's Santi Guillen, the interior artist. So
cool.
he did a series of covers that are used as the chapter breaks.
Cool.
And yes, that's his cover for chapter 5. And it's so like, it has like a Frank Miller vibe to
Yeah.
it. And chapter 5 is my favorite issue of the book.
Okay.
I just felt like we, as a team, we all were firing off, like, because this is my first comic,
All
so
right, okay, cool.
I
Sure.
am learning as I go, like, and I feel like when I look at it, I see an evolution in my storytelling, and kind of how Santi and I started to collaborate. So I think by issue 5, we were just like, okay, this is like very special, and we have something here,
So I will say this. I said it earlier, mine's been passing. It doesn't show that it's your first book, man. It's a it reads very, very well. Who are your literary, your comic book kind of heroes? Are you reading anything at the minute that kind of floats the boat?
I have been recently going into like the manga territory. I just went to Japan on a honeymoon with my wife, and
Congratulations.
thank you. I brought back like 40 books, and they're all in Japanese. So I'm using my Google Translator to read them. But I'm just finding that there's, I read a lot of superhero stuff. I read a lot of Image stuff, and I always love that stuff. I love Steve Niles and the Kirkman stuff, horror. But I found that like eventually I just kind of was like, I don't want to read superheroes anymore. I want to read crime and weird stuff, surreal stuff, and like Junji Ito kind of showed up, and then I just kind of went down the manga role. And then I do like some European comics, like the Philip Drouillet stuff and the Humanoids. They put out some cool stuff.
You have to say European just because I'm British. It's fine. It's cool. It's interesting because I think for me, comic books are just so vast. You can go anywhere. You can any particular.
And
there's
I
always
think
rack space for anything, right?
Totally. People forget to go back. Go back. There's so much good stuff from the 80s and 90s. Like I think they just think about like how the comic industry was maybe in not great shape or whatever, but like, man, you're missing out on incredible stuff if you're not digging backwards, because that's where like some treasures are,
Agreed. Absolutely spot on. All right, let's have some credits. Eventually, when the pages catch up. There we go. Oh, hey up. Some action going on there. Chapter 1.
So this was the first image that Santi sent me. I sent him all my like character designs. I like to draw, but I can't. I tried to draw this as a comic and it looked awful, just awful. So once he came on board, this was, the first image I got to see of Pinky and the Hollywood that we were trying to dig for. And, I think one of the big inspirations I told him was like Batman Year One, like some of the original coloring.
I can see that now you've said it. Absolutely. I was going for kind of like a jaded Hollywood, to be honest, but now you said Batman Year One, I totally see it. For sure.
And there's a little bit of Watchmen coloring kind of vibe here too, with the greens and yellows. But it was just as soon as I saw it, I knew that he had the right tone that I was trying to convey. And to me, this was just like a boiled down, like perfect image of the book.
Cool. Love this page. Pretty much you get the get going on from there.
You know what though? This wasn't originally how the book began. The book was supposed to begin on what is now page 3 with Harry's ex-partner in the office kind of talking. But once I was working with my editor, it was supposed to begin on this page.
Yeah.
But working with my editor, he kind of was talking about how splash pages are used and how they're effective. And so I just was like, okay, well, we're just gonna slap everybody with this like hardcore opening line, like I'm gonna kill my dad. Like, okay, I feel like that throws you right in the deep end already.
Yeah.
And you don't need much more else. That's like the mission statement of the book,
Yeah, true that. Before we take a break, let me just ask you a quick question then. The young lady in question, Pinky, she's wearing a ski mask with the high ponytail. She's wearing some sort of bustier type thing, hot pants, thigh highs, and fishnets. That's quite a striking image to start with, and then you kind of go like in a completely different direction. It's not salacious in stretching the imagination.
No,
How hard was it to kind of balance that, because people see one thing, expect something, and you give
right.
them something completely different?
Yeah, I think, okay, so like it's obviously a sexualized kind of design,
Hmm.
but the character is so unsexual. It's not even like a part of the book or storytelling. I
Cool.
think, I think she's somebody who probably isn't interested in that or relationships, and her
Hmm.
mission kind of doesn't allow that to kind of fit in her narrative. And something I didn't want to do is, we see so many, female heroes that go that route where it is over sexualized and it sells books, and there's nothing wrong with anybody's interpretation, but I wanted to like ground this as like, this is a real story. I'm not going to rely on sex to sell this. I want to, in fact, point at it a bit differently and kind of ask questions about power dynamics,
That's
and
good call.
where are we both agreeing on things, and when that doesn't happen, what happens when people just get away with stuff. And
Mm.
I didn't want to approach it as, because there probably is a version of this where she could be hypersexual and whatever, and
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't know if that would fit the story, because when you read the whole thing, it's more like a gory soap opera,
Yeah, I was going to say I've read it, and fair enough. She's dressed in the fishnets. People who watch the show know I've got a thing for fishnets. That works for me. But it's kind of it's just a costume. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
It's to give her power, not anybody else. It's so I suppose the mask hides her identity, but as you said earlier on, Pat, it's her persona. It gives her, when people see her walking down the street like this, the characters that see her react a certain way, which is what she wants them to do, so she can do what she needs to do down the line. So
I
it's
think
kind of
she's
it's
playing
a tool. It's a tool of the trade.
she's
More than
playing
anything.
into Hollywood. She's playing into
Yeah.
what Hollywood wants, and she's dressing
Yes.
that way so that she gets the eyes of, she's trying to attract her enemies in a way,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
Totally.
like a bug zapper.
Yeah. That's one way of looking at it. Consider me zapped. That's all I'm saying. Right. Before we look more into the book and some of the images that we've got, you've been kind enough to send, time for a quick break for one of our other shows. Now, you mentioned it. You said you need to go back in time to look out for these classics. Go back in time? Sounds like an old timer thing for me.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
There you have it. If you like your comics of a certain age, check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. What more could you want? In fact, if you like old comics that are a little bit wonky, check out the last one. We do, there's a Dark Horse special going on. So you've got some Next Man, you've got some Concrete, things that are a little bit not superhero. So go back, check that out. Not now. Wait till you watch this first. Go back later. All right. Right. What's it like then? You mentioned, Pat, this is your first book. What's it like working so long on this idea and then handing
Man.
it off to an artist and then thinking, please don't, please, and then just wait for it to come back? Me, I'm on tenterhooks just waiting for the Dolphins to win a ball game. Never mind, put my heart and soul into a book. So what's it like, man?
Well, like originally this was a short film, but not this story, but I was making a short film in Hollywood. Oh, it took me 8 years because we would just shoot it off and on whenever we were available and interested. And I didn't write the story. I just kind of had a loose idea of where it was going. And it's all about Hollywood and a street story. And certain characters showed up in the film, Mary and Mika and Heath. And the story of the movie kind of ended, but I wasn't ready to leave this kind of weird world with the thumbtacks. And I knew that there was more potential there. And once I kind of came up with Pinky, I crammed them together and then started telling this kind of revenge story. But even then, it took me a couple of years to find an editor, because the way I wrote this was like a movie script. So once I found an editor, I kind of had to retool it and make it, you know, in the comic book format. And we did maybe 20 revisions on issue 1 because I just like wanted to get it right, and I'm cramming so much information in the first issue. And then we found Santi. Before that, I had storyboarded the entire book myself, just really penciled it out because I had this idea of what I needed it to be. That kind of helped me write it. And then I passed it off to him. One of the hardest parts was letting that kind of director vision go, because that's like what I love is like, I'm the camera guy, you know, I like to frame things up and I like to get the shots. So I did my best to convey what I was looking for. And then he kind of brought in a whole new perspective, a whole new world to it. And part of making comic is collaborating and being open to his vision now and what he wants to bring to the table. So there would be moments where it's exactly what I was thinking. There would be moments where completely surprised me and it's amazing. And there would be moments where I would send him a drawn reference saying, can you like really get in on this and kind of give me this shot? So, you know, a lot of it is learning to let go, because I was choking it, you know, but that's a first story kind of thing. It's the experience of learning to collaborate.
Learn to trust. And that's kind of the thing, isn't it? When it's your baby and you're like, you know, especially if you're super creative and you have not just writing chops, but you try and like you have a distinct vision in your head. Sometimes it's hard to like get past that and see somebody else's vision of the same thing.
Yeah, I think this is the bane of creators who write and can't draw. And it's like, I think and anytime they first get pages back, I think they're always a little nervous that it's not what they imagined. But I think if you kind of step back and look at what the artist is providing, I mean, these guys are so skilled and they're trained in telling stories, sequential storytelling. You know, it's a gift to be able to do readable layouts that are interesting, that are telling the story, but also kind of are dynamic and, you know, getting a lot of information across. It's really difficult. I think I would throw some tricky stuff at him and he would send back beautiful work, you know?
Fair enough. We'll have a look at some of the work now. You were kind enough to send over some promo pages. So there we have something going on. No dialogue, so no game given away. Excellent. Love this panel. I love how the middle one is the eyes wide open shot, you know, and what's going on. And how do you kind of, when we think about the pacing of the story, when you write, are you very much this is a key point, this is a key point, how do I get there? Or do you just write sequentially?
I think no, it is a bit of both. I think for, you know, how I write, I think a bit of in terms of a lot of editing. You know, I do video editing and now kind of comic book editing, and I kind of am looking for what panels are that bigger moment. You know, what panels are kind of choppier, little smaller things that we're kind of building towards that big reveal. You know, and the page turns is something I'm always, because I want the audience to kind of be on this ride. So I think you have to be aware of how panels hit, how a lot of dialogue slows a page down, and how, you know, double splashes have their effect as well. So it's learning the language of telling a story. And then I do a lot of extensive outlining in notebooks. I fill up notebooks. So I write the story a ton of times before I actually sit down and write it, so that by the time I'm writing it, I just know, here's my touchstone scene. This is what happens in it. But I spend a ton of time in notebooks scratching stuff out and rewriting and retooling. You know, I think that's the best way to kind of go through a story is it allows you to get a ton of stuff out of your system. And it's like there's some kind of textural thing about writing versus typing, where you can kind of circle stuff, scratch stuff out, underline, draw a little sketch, and it all kind of starts to build towards that script, you know?
Okay. I'm not a writer, so I don't know the answer to this question. So I'm going to ask like I'm a complete idiot. So please.
No, anything is fine.
So don't go nuts at this. If you're going over something so many times, does it lose some of that sort of like immediate sort of like drive because it becomes like super polished? Do you not like the rawness of that initial idea, or is it kind of like making sure that you like you're trimming the bonsai tree? You have to get the picture. You just have to get it just right.
Right.
Don't
Right.
trim too much.
You know, I think something I always said was like, I love how raw this book is. I think there's like a very rawness of it because also, you know, one, it's my first book, but two, just the subject nature of it, it's very raw.
Yeah.
But in that same nature, I'm so glad I did the retooling and the over dive into the outlining, because if you got the book that was originally planned, it wasn't great. You know, it wasn't great. I don't think we stuck the landing, you know, and I don't think I had everything figured out. So sometimes, you know, that rawness is great. And I think it's a power to have that on your side, to embrace that kind of grittiness. But I still think, you know, there's a professionalism that you wanted to achieve as well, you know?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I suppose from the view from the cheap seat, I like, how can I compare this? I like season 1 Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know it's Alien of the Week. Same like season 1, 2 of Smallville is Meet Freak of the Week. There comes a point where those shows become too formulaic, too polished.
Yes.
And it loses something.
Absolutely.
So
you know,
I was just thinking from if you like revising, I think the book reads great, and you know what? I love how raw's not the word I would use. What was the word? Gritty. I love how, you know, who the good guy is depends on the reader's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a distinct, I don't think, oh yeah, good guy, bad guy.
Right.
There's a ton of dodgy people.
Dodgy, yeah.
If you're, up to you who you pick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you're in this story, you're dodgy to begin with. So it's like, you know, it's you know, be careful wanting to be in this book, because
I was going to say there's a guy on page 47 that looks a lot like. No, I'm joking.
But the grittiness, the rawness, I think about a lot of bands, and I love sometimes it's their first album that I love the most, because they kind of just went for it, and that's what I wanted to do, was just go for it. And you know, you're competing with books on the shelves. You're competing with characters that people already know and are famous. So I think we did our best to kind of put a stamp out there on, this is our character. You know, I got a lot of cover art done to kind of showcase her, and try to help her get a little stage presence. You know,
that?
Yeah, like that. Like that's Doug Dabbs. He's incredible, man.
I've got to say, there's a trade-off, isn't there? You can work on some multimedia icon like old pointy ears, old Batman there, but it's very hard to do anything original. Whereas I think a lot of readers are migrating towards indie books because it's an open world. Anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think, yeah, man. I mean, you know, I love Spider-Man, I love Batman, but at a certain point, I've read all the ones that I want to read. I've read those Touchstone ones, and you know, anything new they're doing is kind of rehashing of the old stuff. That's just how it goes. They want to get new readers, and it's a generational thing. But like at a certain point, I want something crazy. I want something new. I want something that just takes me on a completely different ride. And you know, I love when I can pick up a book and just get lost in it and have no kind of connections or tethers to a film series or any other crap. It's just like, this is a great story. You know, I love this. So that's, you know, that's what I want to do with this. That said, I do want to do more with it. I do want to do my sequels and keep putting this out, because I think there's something built here. There's the foundation and there's the house, but like, I think there's room for a couple other houses in the neighborhood that could shine. And it just doesn't feel like the story is completely over yet. You know, I think a part of it is, and I think anything more that comes has to be different. It has to have something new and freshness to it. But I think I'm glad we have this pillar of this first volume done. And it's just, I'm very proud of it. I love this book. It's like, you know, to me, it feels like an incredible crime revenge movie, even though it is a comic. It has that flow to it, you know.
I just want to kind of, the reason why I'm leaving this picture here is not for the fishnets, although people will think that. I just want people to realize just how much detail is going into this picture, that you kind of taking a snapshot and you think, oh, it's a girl in an outfit and that's it. But look closely. There's some sort of crazy corpse going on down here. Hands there, so the pleading in that like give up mode. There's some stuff going there in her right arm. She's got a bloody heel in her left arm. In her left hand, there's the backdrop of the city behind her. There is a lot going on. So when we talk about kind of setting the scene, and you're putting that cityscape out there, you're letting people know, that this isn't your normal book. This is going to take you to some dark places.
It's in the dark alley. It's in the alleyway with the trash can and stuff.
Yeah.
What's cool about this is I got this done for custom toys. I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have like little pinky action figures.
Fire. 2 seconds. Let me make the picture go big, and then we'll see.
I mean, that one's a little
bit to the side, but yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so I got 6 different artists to do these action figures and kind of design their own toy card, and she has different weapons. So that one, she has the high heel weapon. I love gags. I love Italian horror movies always have great gags, like how they do these kills and stuff like that. The Giallo films. So I really wanted to have some staples in this book, and I think we have some really fun ones whether it's with a drill bit or the high heel, I think, or a couple other weird things. I think we have some fun gags that will shock people, but also I think it will kind of set you in. This is the world, and if you buy in, I think you'll really love it.
Well, I'm all in. I've read the book, the preview that you sent across, and I think it's an absolute peach of a book. I genuinely, when I say this, I genuinely mean it. I was kicking myself when I didn't get a chance to look at this the first time around. So as I said, this is an absolute, it's a dream for me to get a chance to look at it again. And not only that, speak to you about it in the first instance. How cool is that?
Yeah,
It's very cool. Excellent. We're running close on our time. So, Pat, you've mentioned revenge story, crime story, bit 70s, maybe a bit Dirty Harry-esque, maybe some modern day twists going on with social media and so on. How would you, if I said give me 60 seconds, how would you best do this as an elevator pitch?
An elevator pitch? Man, I'm not good at these, but I would just say
you must have been. You got it published, so you must have pitched it to somebody.
I mean, we could. All right. So what I'll say is, if you like a crime and revenge story, and you want a female hero who is not just Wonder Woman and Catwoman, but something a little bit different, something more real and grounded, and you want to see her on this brutal mission to kill somebody who deserves it, then you need to check out this book. It's neon, twisted, gory, and it has some comedy, but I think the main thing is it's payback to someone who deserves it. And how often do we get that resolution where the bad guy actually gets it, especially in the real world. So I think, this is a comic that I think kind of pushes that stuff. And I hope that people check it out. I hope that they don't miss this one because it's brutal, and it would be a shame to have this just, pass by.
Right. That's a great call. I agree with you wholeheartedly. You can go to godhoodcomics.com, place your order for the book. There it is. There's the link. The link will be underneath the pod, so you can click it at any given time. The page has loads of stuff on there, a chance to subscribe. You can see what you can add it to your cart. It is due, as I said, on the 7th of August, so you can get your kind of pre-order in there, get that sorted.
Pre-order in. You could also pre-order from any comic shop. You can tell them, hey, I need Pop Scars. I need it. I need 5 copies, and they'll hook you up. It's in diamond right now. Yeah.
Excellent. So to keep abreast of all information, there's a couple of social medias. You've got your Insta there at Punch Publishing. and Godhood Comics on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, I'm sorry. On Twitter and Instagram. So that's cool. Go check that out for all the latest updates and so on and so forth. Great. Wow. That 40 minutes flew by.
Yeah,
When did that happen? That was like super quick. When did that go?
See, well, thank you, man. Thank you, Johnny, for talking about the book, man. I appreciate it.
Honestly, it's been an absolute blast. For books like this, books like this come around so few and far between that when you see them, you've just got to grab on and strap yourself in for the ride.
Thank you.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I have read this book since you sent it over for the pod, and I have laughed, I have cried, I've been shocked. I'm like, oh my God, why am I laughing at this? Why am I shocked by this? And, I've just thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing. It has been an absolute pleasure to read the book. I recommend it to anybody who likes any sort of crime, revenge, Sin City-esque, but without all the black and white, kind of shades of dodginess. Maybe that's not the best quote you could put on the cover. But it's there. You know what I'm saying? 50 Shades of Dodgy. That's what that was. So you know what? It's a great book. There is a rawness, there is a grittiness to it, but that just makes the book even more enjoyable. It just makes it makes the character's journey more real. You know, we
really worked hard on this. This has been a couple of years, so it feels really good to be at the point where it's coming out, and I just can't wait to see people check it out. And I want to hear what people think about it. I want to hear what their favorite part is. What's your favorite page? You know what I mean?
Let's go for it. Let's have some shout outs. You know, by all means. Pat, it's been an absolute blast having you on the show. Thank you so much for spending the time.
Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, I appreciate it so much, man.
You're all right, man. Anytime. Door's always open. So volume 2 comes round and you give me a shout for sure.
Awesome.
That's it for the show. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows. You saw the trailer for it earlier. The Old Timers comic book shows. If you do like Marvel books, don't fret. The No Price podcast will be back on your screen soon. But for you DC fans and their Absolute Power series that's due to kick off this summer event, it is the Definitive Crusaders. What more could you want? I don't know. Maybe more pop scars. Don't tell me. Tell him. Tell him. He's the guy doing it. Pat, thank you so much, man. I know you must be really busy, so thank you so much for taking time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. And as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.